and never thought forgetting my husband's will would save my life. I wasn't supposed to be home. But when I unlocked the door, I froze. Once she's on that plane, we'll transfer the house deed. Jason's voice hissed from the living room. Claire's low laugh followed, sharp as broken glass. She won't suspect a thing. She's too soft. Always has been. My knees threatened to buckle. They were planning to steal my home. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. And suddenly, I wasn't just their naive, grieving mother anymore. I was a witness. And witnesses are dangerous. Silence. Please don't hear me. I reach for the doorknob behind me, twisting it slowly. It groans faintly. Claire's voice breaks the stillness again, louder this time. Did you hear something? My heart slams against my ribs. Probably nothing, Jason mutters, but his voice is closer now. Footsteps. I duck low, gripping my suitcase tight, and slip out the door just as a shadow crosses the hallway. The porch light flickers overhead as I ease the door shut. If Jason looks out the window now, he'll see me. If Claire suspects anything, it's over. I crouch low, moving toward the taxi in slow, silent steps. The driver is scrolling on his phone, oblivious. When I finally slide into the back seat, my hands are trembling so hard I can barely pull the door closed. Back already? He asks, glancing in the mirror. Just drive, I whisper. Please. He shrugs and pulls away from the house. Only when the tires crunch over the end of the driveway do I exhale. But I can't stop shaking. Jason, my only son, plotting to take everything Derek and I built. 2 weeks earlier, we'd sat in this very kitchen, the same kitchen where Derek used to brew coffee at 5 a.m., where Jason learned to read, sitting on my lap. Mom, you need a break, Jason had said gently. You've been through so much with Dad's passing. Go somewhere warm. Portugal, maybe, I'd tried to protest. I'm fine here. There's still so much to handle. He reached across the table, squeezing my hand. Please, let me take care of things. Dad would want you to rest. Claire had chimed in from the doorway, her voice soft and sweet. We'll handle everything, Margaret. You deserve this. At the time, it felt like love. Now it feels like a trap. Where to? The driver asks, jolting me back. I hesitate. If I go back, they'll know I overheard. But if I leave, they'll think I'm gone for good, and they'll move faster. Just drive around for now, I murmur. The car rolls past darkened houses, street lights flickering like dying candles. My fingers tighten around my purse. The envelope. Derek's will. If I hadn't forgotten it tonight, if I hadn't turned back, I never would have heard them. I never would have known. In the rearview mirror, I see movement. A curtain twitching, my stomach lurches. Jason! His silhouette appears in the window, head tilting slightly, as if scanning the street. Stop the car, I hiss. The driver brakes gently. Something wrong? I duck low in my seat. Turn the lights off. Now. He hesitates but flicks them off. The car idles in the shadows. Jason steps closer to the glass, peering out. Does he see me? I press a hand over my mouth to muffle my breath. After what feels like an eternity, he steps back. The curtain falls shut. The driver exhales loudly. Lady, you okay? You're acting like someone's chasing you. They might be, I whisper. He gives me a wary look, but doesn't press. As he drives on, my thoughts race. They think I'm weak. They think I'm clueless. Let them. If I play this right, they'll never see me coming. But first, I need a plan. And I need to make sure they never suspect I know. I didn't even know where I told the driver to go. Just drive, I whispered, still clutching my purse like a lifeline. He gave me a glance in the rearview mirror, one that said he'd seen worse, but nodded and pulled away from the curb. The suburban streets passed by in a quiet blur, every manicured lawn and glowing porch light feeling like another world I didn't belong to anymore. I sank into the back seat, pressing my fingers to my temples. The warmth of the car did little to soothe the cold that had rooted deep in my chest. Had I imagined it? Jason's voice, that icy clarity in Claire's tone. Maybe I was confused. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe it was just a bad joke, something taken out of context. But no matter how hard I tried to rationalize it, the words kept coming back like echoes in an empty hallway. Transfer the house, Steed. She's too soft. You don't say those things if you're planning a surprise party. You say them when you think no one is listening. Eventually, I gave the driver a soft direction. Can you stop by St. Joseph's? On Belmont? He raised his eyebrows, probably wondering what an old woman in heels and a travel coat needed at a church after 10 p.m., but he didn't ask questions. The parking lot was almost empty, just a single flickering lamp near the steps and the faded outline of a cross glowing faintly on the steeple. Here, okay? I nodded, already opening the door. Yes, just wait for me a moment, please. The air outside was crisp, sharp with night. I walked slowly up to the steps, but didn't go inside. The doors were locked anyway. I knew they would be, but standing there felt necessary, like visiting a place where a younger version of me once felt certain about the world. I used to bring Jason here, back when Derek and I believed in the kind of faith that came with hymns and Easter brunches. We'd sit in the third pew from the back, Jason always fidgeting, Derek's hand always steady on my knee. That version of my son wouldn't hurt me. That version of me wouldn't let him. I turned back to the car before the tears could fall and slid into the back seat. There's an apartment building off Weller Street, I told the driver, north of the pharmacy, green awning out front. Got it. Helen's place hadn't changed in 20 years. Still the same chipped intercom button, still the same faint smell of cinnamon and cigarette smoke in the hallway. I didn't call ahead. I didn't trust my voice not to crack. She opened the door in a housecoat and fuzzy socks, her eyes squinting for just a second before widening. Margaret? Hi, I said, swallowing hard. Hi. I needed to see someone who doesn't lie to me. She didn't ask questions, just stepped aside and motioned me in. Helen's apartment was a cluttered mess of books, old crosswords, and half-finished knitting projects. It was the opposite of Claire's sterile perfection, and for the first time all night I exhaled. She poured us both lukewarm tea from a chipped pot and pushed the sugar bowl toward me. Talk. So I did. Not everything. Not the part about sneaking back in or hiding in the dark, but enough. I think Jason's trying to take the house, I whispered. I heard him and Claire talking. He said they'd transfer the deed once I got on the plane. Helen didn't blink. She just stirred her tea and nodded slowly. I knew something was off, I continued, fingers trembling around the cup. He's been different since Derek died, smiling too much, offering to handle things. Helen set her spoon down, hard. I've seen worse, she said flatly. Children turning on parents for far less than a house. Don't fool yourself. Money changes people. I stared at her. But he's my son. And? She leaned back in her chair, arms folded. So was David, my oldest. You remember how he smiled through Thanksgiving dinner while filing a petition to have me declared mentally unfit? My stomach turned. He needed access to the trust, she added bitterly. Said it was for the family. Funny how the family always means everyone but you once you stop paying their bills. I didn't know what to say. Helen sighed, softening. Look, maybe it's not as bad as it sounds. Maybe Jason's scared about money, or Claire's pushing him, or... She stopped herself. Just don't go back there tonight, you hear me? Don't let them know what you know until you know more. I nodded, silent. And for the first time in days, I felt something settle in me. Not peace, not anger, readiness. The city was still when the taxi turned onto my street. Here okay? The driver asked softly, as if he could feel the tension pouring off me. Yes, I murmured. Here's fine. I paid him quickly and waited until his taillights vanished before I crept up the driveway, keeping to the shadows like an intruder in my own life. The house looked the same as it always did from the outside, quiet, respectable, warm light spilling from the curtains. But I knew better now. Jason and Claire's car were both gone, probably parked at some trendy wine bar where they could toast to my vacation and the future they were stealing out from under me. It was nearly midnight. I needed them gone if I was going to pull this off. With shaking hands, I unlocked the front door and slipped inside. Silence. I let the door close soundlessly behind me, pausing to listen for movement. Nothing. The house smelled faintly of Claire's perfume, something expensive and sharp that made the air feel hostile. I held my breath as I tiptoed toward the stairs, careful to avoid the third step from the top. It creaked loudly, a trick I'd learned back when Jason was a boy sneaking in past curfew. My bedroom was dark and cold. The safe sat hidden in the back of the closet, behind a stack of shoeboxes Derek used to call my retail therapy collection. I hadn't opened it in months, not since Derek's funeral. For a moment, my fingers hovered over the combination lock. I could hear Jason's voice in my mind. "Don't worry about Dad's will, Mom. It's too much paperwork for you right now. Let me handle it." I'd been so lost in grief back then, so desperate for someone else to take charge, that I hadn't thought twice about handing over the lawyer's envelope. But this copy in the safe, I had never told him about. The lock clicked open with a soft snick, and I pulled the metal door wide. There it was, the envelope. Derek's handwriting on the front, careful and strong. Last will and testament original. My hands trembled as I slid it out, but beneath it was something else. A smaller envelope, addressed to me. Margaret. I stared at it, my pulse hammering. I didn't remember seeing this before. The paper was yellowed slightly at the edges. Derek must have written it before the heart attack, tucked it away quietly without saying a word. I sank onto the edge of the bed and broke the seal with my thumb. His familiar scrawl leapt off the page. "My love, if you're reading this, it means I'm gone, and there's no one left to remind you how strong you really are. Don't let them pressure you. Not Jason, not anyone. You built this life with me, brick by brick. It's yours. Protect it. Protect yourself. And if the day comes when you feel alone, remember, I believed in you more than I ever believed in anyone. Never let them pressure you, my love." The words blurred as hot tears spilled onto my cheeks. "Derek," I whispered into the empty room. He had known. Maybe not this exact betrayal, but he'd known enough about people, about family dynamics, to leave me this tiny anchor in a storm I didn't yet realize was coming. I folded the letter carefully and pressed it to my chest, drawing in a shaky breath. No more being soft, no more letting Jason handle anything. I slipped the letter into my pocket and returned the will to the safe, locking it tight. By the time I slid under the covers, still fully dressed, my mind was already racing with questions. Who was the lawyer Jason had been speaking to? Was the paperwork they mentioned even legitimate? Could they really transfer the deed without me signing anything? I didn't have the answers yet, but I knew one thing for certain. Derek had left me more than a house. He left me the permission to fight for it. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's handwriting. "Never let them pressure you, my love." By dawn, I'd made tea I didn't drink, paced the kitchen until the tile felt cold under my feet, and peered through the curtains at the street. No sign of Jason or Claire's car. Still, I jumped at every sound. The creak of pipes, a dog barking in the distance, the faint hum of a garbage truck. When the knock came, it wasn't loud, but it sliced through the quiet like a blade. 3 sharp raps. I froze in place, my teacup trembling in my hand. Then his voice, low but clear. "Mom, are you in there?" Jason. My stomach clenched. I set the cup down gently on the counter and smoothed my hair with trembling fingers. Whatever he wanted, I couldn't let him see that I knew anything. Opening the door a crack, I forced my face into a weak, surprised smile. "Jason, what are you doing here?" He stood there, neat as ever in his polo shirt, holding a paper coffee cup. "I was just in the area," he said lightly. "Thought I'd check on you." His eyes flicked past me, scanning the hallway. I didn't move to open the door further. "I thought you'd be on your way to Lisbon by now," he added, his tone casual. Too casual. "I wasn't feeling well last night," I murmured. "The flight will have to wait." Something shifted in his expression, just for a moment. But then the mask returned. Well, maybe it's for the best. You've been under a lot of stress lately." He stepped forward slightly, and I had no choice but to let him in. Jason moved through the house like he owned it, setting his coffee on the kitchen counter and glancing toward the hallway. "You should have called," he said. "Claire and I were worried when we didn't hear from you." I forced a laugh. "No need to worry. I just needed some rest." But my mind was screaming. Does he know I came back early? Does he know I heard them? I remembered the way Claire had smirked as she said, She's too soft. Always has been. That was how they saw me. Soft. Good. Let them. Jason's gaze lingered a little too long on the closed door to my bedroom, and for one terrible second, I thought he might head that way. Anyway, he said finally, turning back to me, we should talk soon about the house, finances, just to make sure everything's in order while you're away. I nodded, forcing the smile to stay on my lips even as my nails dug into my palms. Of course, Jason, we'll talk. When he left, I stayed perfectly still until I heard the faint hum of his car pulling away. Only then did I let the smile drop and sag against the counter. Jason hadn't just come to check on me. He was testing the waters, and something told me the real storm was still ahead. Jason didn't leave right away. After his casual offer to help sort out the house paperwork, he stayed in the kitchen, drumming his fingers against the countertop while sipping his coffee. Every few moments, his gaze drifted toward the hallway, toward my bedroom. Claire and I were talking last night, he said slowly, like he was choosing each word with care. We really need to make sure everything's organized, Mom. It's too much for you to handle alone. I stirred my tea with deliberate calm, though my stomach twisted. I'll think about it, I said softly. But right now, I just want to rest. Jason nodded, but his eyes were still scanning the room, sharp and restless. Then, as if pulled by instinct, he stepped out of the kitchen and started down the hall. My breath caught. Jason? My voice cracked slightly. He paused near the closed door to my bedroom, his hand brushing the doorknob. Just making sure everything's locked up tight, he said with a faint smile. But there was something in his tone, too smooth, too rehearsed. My heart pounded as I forced myself to stay seated. If I ran after him now, he'd know I was hiding something. After a long moment, he stepped back, his hand falling to his side. All right, he said finally. Get some rest, Mom. I'll call you later. I kept my smile in place until the door closed behind him, and his footsteps faded down the porch. Only then did I let out a shuddering breath. He suspected something. I could feel it in the way his eyes lingered, the way he hesitated outside my room. But I wasn't ready to let him know what I had. They think I'm weak, I thought, gripping my teacup so tightly I thought it might crack. Let them. For now. But if I was going to fight back, I needed help. Someone who understood how quickly children could turn on a parent. Helen's warning rang in my ears. Don't underestimate them. That afternoon, I found myself scrolling through my phone contacts, my finger hovering over a name I hadn't dialed in years. Margaret Chen, my lawyer. It was time to find out exactly where I stood, and just how far Jason and Claire had already gone. By the time Jason's car had disappeared down the street, I already knew what I had to do. There would be no more aimless pacing, no more cups of tea left cold on the counter. Jason's little detour into my hallway, his fingers grazing my bedroom door like he owned the place, was all the warning I needed. He wasn't just plotting, he was checking, testing. And if I didn't act soon, I'd wake up one day to find my name erased from every deed, every account, every shred of the life Derek and I built together. So I planned carefully. By noon, I'd dressed in my neatest slacks and jacket, the kind of outfit that said, calm and rational, even if my stomach was tied in knots. Then I called a taxi. Corner of Ashbury and Main, I told the driver, take me downtown. He didn't ask questions. As the city rolled past the window, I gripped my purse tightly in my lap, the edge of Derek's letter folded neatly inside. Never let them pressure you, my love. I wouldn't. Not anymore. Margaret Chen's office was on the 10th floor of a sleek glass building in the heart of downtown. She'd been my lawyer for over a decade, helping Derek and me navigate everything from taxes to estate planning. She was sharp, methodical, and utterly discreet. Exactly the kind of ally I needed now. Her assistant showed me in right away. Colleen, Margaret said warmly, rising from behind her mahogany desk. It's been too long. It has, I said, forcing a small smile. But there was no time for pleasantries. As soon as I sat down, I lowered my voice. Margaret, I think Jason and Claire are planning something with the house. I overheard them talking about transferring the deed once I left for Lisbon. Her expression didn't change, but I saw a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Have you signed anything recently?" she asked calmly. "No, but years ago, after Derek died, I let Jason handle the will. I was so overwhelmed back then, I didn't even question it." Margaret leaned forward slightly. "Would you like me to pull up the property records? See if there have been any changes?" "Yes, please." She opened her laptop and began typing swiftly. I sat frozen in the leather chair, staring at the neat row of law books on her shelf as the sound of her keyboard filled the room. Then she stopped. Her eyes narrowed at the screen. "Colleen," she said slowly, "it appears a quitclaim deed was filed 6 weeks ago. It transfers ownership of the property from you to Jason." My heart lurched. "What?" She turned the screen slightly. There it was, my name, Jason's name. A digital copy of my signature scrawled neatly at the bottom. "But I didn't sign anything," I whispered. Margaret's jaw tightened. "Then I'm afraid this was done without your consent." "And that signature?" She pointed. "If it's not yours, that's forgery." The room seemed to spin. Jason hadn't been planning to steal my home. He'd already done it. "Forgery?" I repeated, my voice hoarse. Margaret Chen nodded, her expression grave. "It's illegal," she said calmly. "If we can prove you didn't sign that quitclaim deed, we can file a petition to reverse the transfer. But we'll need to move carefully." "Carefully?" I echoed. "You don't want to alert Jason and Claire too soon," she explained. "If they've already transferred other assets or taken loans against the property, we'll need to freeze activity before they can do more damage." I gripped my purse tightly. "Can you help me?" "Of course," she said. "But I'll need your full cooperation. First, we'll get a certified copy of the deed and a handwriting expert to analyze the signature. Then we can notify the county clerk and request a temporary injunction to block any further transactions." "And Jason won't know?" "Not until we're ready," she assured me. "I'll handle the paperwork discreetly." "But Colleen," I looked up, "once we begin, there's no turning back. Are you prepared for how ugly this could get?" I thought of Jason's face that morning, the way his hand had lingered on my bedroom door. "Yes," I said quietly, "I'm prepared." The late afternoon sun bathed my backyard in golden light as I stepped outside. The rose bushes Derek planted all those years ago were still in bloom, their petals delicate but stubborn. I knelt in the soil, brushing my fingers over a soft pink bloom. "They think I'll just let them take it," I whispered. For a moment, I closed my eyes and pictured Derek beside me, his broad hands covered in dirt, his warm voice murmuring, "You're stronger than you know, Margaret." He'd believed in me. Now it was time I believed in myself. They won't take what we built. I stood slowly, brushing the dirt from my hands, and turned toward the house. Tomorrow I'd begin my preparations. Quietly. Deliberately. Jason and Claire thought they were dealing with a soft, grieving widow. They had no idea what I was about to do. The next morning I woke up before the sun. This time there was no fear in my chest, only a steady determination. They thought I was soft. They thought they had me cornered. But Jason and Claire didn't know I had already taken the first step to reclaim what was mine. By 9 a.m., I was at the hardware store, buying a new set of locks. "Moving into a new place?" the clerk asked with a polite smile. "Something like that," I murmured. When I got home, I worked quietly, careful to avoid making too much noise as I replaced the locks on the front and back doors. My hands trembled only once, when I removed the old brass key Jason had duplicated years ago. That key had opened this home to him. Not anymore. By noon, I had placed a call to Margaret Chen. "Yes, Colleen." Her calm voice came through the line. "Let's update the will," I said firmly. "And I want to transfer everything into a private trust under my control." "Good," she replied without hesitation. "That will make it significantly harder for them to move against you again. I don't want Jason or Claire to know until everything is finalized." "They won't," she promised. I hung up and felt the tight knot in my stomach begin to loosen. This wasn't just about protecting my house. It was about protecting me. That evening, I sat in my study, surrounded by papers. I planted a few bait documents in plain sight. a folder labeled House Appraisal, and a bank statement for a non-existent account. If Jason or Claire snooped around, I'd know. Then I took the small, hidden camera I'd ordered weeks ago and tucked it between the books on my shelf, angled perfectly at my desk. It blinked once, a soft red light, before going still. I tested the live feed on my phone. The video came through crystal clear. Good. By midnight, the house was silent. I sat in the dark with Derek's letter in my lap, watching the camera feed on my phone. Jason and Claire didn't know it yet, but every step they took from here on out would be recorded. If they wanted to play dirty, so could I. This wasn't just my house. It was my battlefield, and I wasn't going to lose. I kept the house quiet and dim that evening. The curtains were drawn, the lights low, and a half-empty cup of chamomile tea sat cooling on the nightstand beside me. If Jason and Claire were going to make their move, it would be tonight. I made sure they believed I was asleep. My bedroom door was slightly ajar. From the shadows, I watched their silhouettes glide past the hallway. Jason's voice was little more than a whisper. She's definitely out. I checked. She hasn't moved in hours. Good, Claire murmured. Let's hurry. We can't leave any trace. From my phone, the live feed flickered to life. The hidden camera in my study captured everything. The creak of the door, Jason's tall frame slipping inside, Claire right behind him in her designer heels. They didn't waste a second. Jason went straight to my desk, yanking open drawers. Claire's fingers fluttered over the folders I'd left out as bait. She's got bank statements here, Claire said, her voice sharp with excitement. And look, something about a house appraisal. Perfect. If we find evidence she's selling or moving assets, we can argue she's no longer competent to manage her estate. Once the lawyer sees this, Claire added with a low laugh, it'll be even easier to push for full control. My grip on the phone tightened. They weren't just trying to steal my house, they were preparing to erase me. Jason rifled through another drawer. No sign of the original will. Are you sure she kept it here? She's too sentimental to toss something like that, Claire said. Keep looking. The camera caught her smirk as she held up one of the fake folders I'd planted. Retirement account. Transfer authorization, she read aloud, her eyes gleaming. Oh, this is gold. Jason leaned in, scanning the document. We'll take photos. Don't move anything. My stomach churned, but I kept my breathing slow and even. Not yet. Let them think they were winning. In the study, Claire took out her phone and began snapping pictures. Jason paused suddenly, glancing toward the door. Do you hear that? He whispered. Claire froze. Relax, she said after a moment. She's out cold. We checked. Jason hesitated, then turned back to the papers. But I knew that look. My son was paranoid for a reason. From my bed, I whispered to myself, Before, who finds out, Jason? I had seen enough. My son, the boy I once cradled against my chest when he was feverish, was standing in my study, plotting to destroy me with the woman he married. They thought I was asleep. They thought I was weak, but now it was time they saw who I really was. I slid out of bed quietly, phone in hand. My bare feet made no sound on the hardwood floor as I moved down the hallway. Their voices were clearer now, low and hurried. Take a photo of that one too, Claire whispered. We'll need proof she's making bad financial decisions. That'll help when we file. Quick, Jason muttered. We can't stay long. If she wakes up, I pushed the door open. It slammed against the wall with a crack that made both of them jump like startled animals. Before WHO finds out, Jason? Their heads whipped toward me. Claire's phone slipped from her hand and clattered to the floor. Jason's face went pale. Mom, he stammered, it's not what you think. Not what I think? I hissed, stepping into the room. My hands were steady, but my voice shook with fury. I heard every word last night. Every filthy, conniving word. Transfer the deed. She's too soft. And now you're in here rifling through my life like thieves in the night. Claire's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Jason stepped forward, hands raised like he was calming a wild animal. Mom, please, you're tired. You've been under a lot of stress. We're just trying to help. Help, he? The word came out like a whip crack. I held up my phone, screen glowing. Do you want to see what help looks like, Jason? Because I have it all recorded. Every step you took in here, every word out of your mouths. The camera caught everything. His jaw tightened. You're overreacting. No, I said coldly. For the first time in my life, I'm seeing things clearly. Claire swallowed hard. We were only trying to protect the family assets. You've been so distracted since Derek died. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Don't you dare use Derek's name. He saw you both for what you are before he passed. That's why he left me the letter. That's why I still have the original will. Jason's face darkened. You don't understand how complicated this is, Mom. If you just sign, I will never sign anything for you again. For a moment, the room went still. Claire bent slowly to pick up her phone, her hands shaking. Jason's eyes darted to the door, then back to me. I could almost see his mind racing. She knows. She's not supposed to know. I want you both out of my house, I said firmly. Now. Jason didn't move. You don't have a choice, I added, because the next call I make is to my lawyer, and after that, to the police. Claire grabbed Jason's arm. Let's go, she hissed. Mom, Jason started. Go. This time, he listened. As their footsteps faded down the hallway, I stayed rooted in place, my chest heaving. For the first time since Derek's funeral, I felt steady. They thought they could erase me, but I wasn't going anywhere. The front door slammed behind them, and for a moment I stood in the middle of my study, gripping my phone so tightly my knuckles ached. It felt like I'd finally won. But Jason wasn't done with me yet. The sound of footsteps returned. Heavy, deliberate. Jason appeared in the doorway again, alone this time. His face was pale, but his mouth curled into a strange, tight smile. Mom, he said softly, almost like he pitied me. You need to understand something. I don't need to understand anything, I snapped. You broke into my study. You rifled through my private documents. I should have you arrested right now. You could, he said with a little shrug. Then he laughed. It wasn't the warm, boyish laugh I remembered from when he was little. This one was colder, harder. You really think you're in control here, don't you? I stiffened. I have everything on camera. One word to my lawyer and... Your lawyer can't help you, Jason interrupted, his voice dropping to a low, almost mocking tone. Because you don't have anything left to protect. I frowned. What are you talking about? He stepped into the room, the smirk never leaving his face. The accounts, the investments, the cash Dad left you. My blood ran cold. What did you do? I whispered. It's all gone, Mom. Moved. Weeks ago. My knees threatened to give out. You're lying. Jason shook his head slowly, almost pityingly. You trusted me to handle Dad's will, remember? You gave me access, full authority. You wouldn't, I murmured. Wouldn't I? His voice sharpened. You've been so easy to manage all these years, always too trusting, too soft. That word again. Soft. My fingers curled into fists. You think I'm helpless? I said quietly. I think, Jason said evenly, that you don't realize how much power I already have. You've been living in a house that isn't yours anymore, spending money that isn't there. His words hit like physical blows. Claire appeared in the doorway behind him, her arms crossed. It's done, Colleen, she said coldly. You should have let us handle this. Now it's too late. Jason took a step closer. You have nothing, Mom, nothing to fight us with. For a moment, I stood there frozen, my mind screaming. But then, like a faint light cutting through fog, Helen's voice came back to me. Don't underestimate them. And don't let them underestimate you. Jason didn't know everything. He didn't know about the private trust Margaret Chin and I had set up. He didn't know the accounts he thought were his had been quietly frozen just yesterday. Not yet. I drew a slow, steady breath and met his cold stare with one of my own. Are you quite finished? I asked softly. Jason blinked, caught off guard. Because if you are, I'd like you and Claire to leave. Now. He studied me for a long, tense moment. Then, with a small shake of his head, he muttered, You made this harder than it had to be." And they left. As the door clicked shut behind them, I stood in the dim light of my study, my phone still in hand. They thought they had won, but tomorrow they'd find out just how wrong they were. The sound of their car door slamming had barely faded when I stepped into the hall. "Jason," I called. He turned back, one foot still on the porch. Claire stood by the car, arms crossed impatiently. "Just one more thing before you go," I said calmly. Jason's smirk returned. "Oh, ready to listen now?" "I think you should hear this," I replied. I held up my phone and pressed the speaker button. "Margaret Chen's office," came the crisp voice of my lawyer. "It's Colleen," I said smoothly. "Can you confirm what we did yesterday?" "Yes," Margaret replied without missing a beat. "We froze all accounts tied to your late husband's estate and transferred your assets into a private trust. Full legal protections are now in place." Claire's head snapped up. Jason's smug expression faltered. "Margaret," I continued, my voice steady, "has anyone else been authorized to access the accounts?" "No," she said firmly. "Only you. Any attempts by others would be considered fraudulent and will be flagged immediately." Jason's jaw tightened. Claire made a strangled sound, halfway between a gasp and a growl. "You," Jason began, but I cut him off. "I knew what you were doing before you knew I was watching. Every forged signature, every quiet little transfer. And now, you've been locked out." Claire stepped forward, her face red. "You said she wouldn't figure it out," she hissed at Jason. "Enough," I said sharply. "Get off my porch. And don't come back." Jason glared at me, his hands clenched at his sides. "You made this harder than it had to be," he muttered. "And you made a mistake," I replied coldly. "You thought I was still grieving. You thought I'd roll over and let you take everything Derek and I built." I stepped closer, my voice low and firm. "But I'm not grieving anymore. I'm fighting." Claire yanked Jason's arm, dragging him toward the car. "You're going to regret this," Jason threw over his shoulder. I didn't flinch. "No, Jason," I said softly. "You are?" And I shut the door behind them. For a long moment, I stood there in the quiet house, my back against the door, my phone still in my hand. For the first time in months, I felt taller, steadier. They thought they could destroy me. But I'd outplayed them. The air was sharp and cool that morning, the kind of quiet only found in the minutes before dawn. I sat on the porch in my favorite wicker chair, a steaming cup of tea in my hands. The garden smelled faintly of Derek's roses. It was over. For the first time in weeks, I could feel it, not just in my body, but in my bones. Jason and Claire's car had sped away into the night hours earlier, but they wouldn't get far. Margaret Chen's team had filed everything: the fraud complaint, the injunction, the freeze orders. And the footage from my hidden camera? That was already in the hands of the authorities. At precisely 6:43 a.m., I heard it, the low rumble of engines. 2 police cars turned onto the street, their lights flashing silently in the soft light of dawn. I didn't move, didn't flinch. Jason and Claire had always assumed I'd crumble under pressure, that I was too soft to fight back. But they were wrong. As the officer stepped out, I sipped my tea, letting the warmth settle deep in my chest. This wasn't just about the house anymore. It was about the years I spent putting everyone else first, the sacrifices, the blind trust. And now it was about me. The door to Jason and Claire's house slammed. Raised voices carried across the street. Claire's shrill tone. Jason's lower, tense replies. I didn't need to hear the words to know what they were saying. "How could she do this? You said she wouldn't fight back." I set my cup down gently and exhaled. I wasn't supposed to hear their plan that night, but I did. And because of that, I was still standing, while their little empire of lies crumbled around them. The lead officer glanced my way as he walked up their driveway. Our eyes met for a brief moment. I gave a small nod. He nodded back. The sound of police radios crackled in the distance as I stood and stretched, the rising sun warm against my face. For the first time in a long while, I wasn't looking over my shoulder. I wasn't grieving. I wasn't afraid. I was free. and whatever came next, it would be on my terms.